Uganda is located in the Africa continent. The population in Uganda is 36,824,000. This is according from the 2013 census. The total population of Ugandans in the United States is 20,248 Ugandans. The neighboring countries of Uganda are Democratic Republic of the Congo, Kenya, Rwanda, South Sudan, and Tanzania. The capital and largest city in Uganda is Kampala. Uganda also became an independent state in 1962. Ugandans are classified into several linguistic groups. Bantu-speaking majority group, which is central, southern, and western part of the countries, and non-Bantu speakers who occupy the eastern, northern, and northwestern portions of the country. The official language is English and Swahili. The other language in Uganda, which is the largest group in Uganda, are the Baganda, who live in Kampala and they speak Luganda. Most of the religion that you will find is Christianity and Islam, and these two are the most widely professed languages there. You have your Muslim, Roman Catholic, and practitioners of Ugandan traditional religion. The political systems, the dominant party, semi-presidential republic. Power is in the hands of a unicameral parliament, the National Resistance Council. And normally executive powers are held by the president, who is elected for a 5-year term. The culture, there's various cultures in Uganda. Shaking hands is the normal form of greeting in Uganda. Dance is an important part of ceremonies and special occasions. Religion does play an important part of daily life in Uganda, and Ugandans are strong in their faith and hold on to very traditional beliefs. In times of trouble, they pray to the Christian or Muslim God and may also consult a local or oracle healer for various different things. Their view of health and illness is that they believe that supernatural factors influence their health to a limited extent. They believe that Western medicine is a contributor to their current and future health. They also believe in herbal medication as a first resort versus Western medication. Healing abilities in traditional medicine are believed to be a function both of knowledge of herbs and of supernatural powers. Holy water is also used, and it is drunk to ensure health and to fight off any illnesses.
Health maintenance couldn't be more separated than the gender roles of the Ugandan people, because there are two different ways in which people live. While all the urban areas receive better care and treatments than of those that live in rural areas. Although there is a hospital in each district, majority lack the money and the transportation to make it to those facilities. Besides inaccessibility, people also have to worry about the high cost of medication. It is estimated that 90 out of 1,000 kids will die before the age of 5 due to environmental causes, living conditions, and the inability to get treatment. Those that live in urban areas are more educated and prefer using Western styles of treatment while using traditional measures for minor, less severe causes. The use of traditional herbs, minerals, and animals for medicinal purposes are mainly because the people in Uganda don't have access to facilities. They use these things as preventive measures and curing measures. They can help cope with pain and or be a pain reliever. The use of international supports. Most, if not all, of the preventive measures for those that live in rural areas come from international supports. They bring along relief programs along with volunteers to improve the health issue. Places such as the Centers of Disease Control and So Hope, along with many other places, offer HIV prevention, care, and treatment. They volunteer in medical clinics to provide education and even jobs and/or job training. Ugandans also receive the help of public and private sectors, ministries of health, internal affairs, and the local government. Some of the beliefs, mental, physical, and spiritual, that they have are in curses and/or demons. Mental health is seen as abnormal and usually as a punishment from ancestors for failure to perform funeral rituals correctly. Those that suffer from mental illnesses are not supposed to be exposed. Families will often hide the symptoms. The person with the mental illness is subject to discrimination and/or isolation from the family and even rejection. They are poorly treated and abandoned, often getting tied to trees, locked inside the home, or in jail. Some treatments for this may include prayer and/or spiritual healers. Beliefs continue. 3 major types of religions include Christianity, Muslim, and traditional beliefs. They all believe in the belief that a supreme being is in control. Traditional healers, shrines, and spirits. People offer prayers and sacrifices to symbolize respect for the dead and maintain relationships among the living. Religious practitioners often cope with pain, suffering, defeat, and providing explanation of causes. When thinking about considerations of time, men and women use their time in different manners. Since the men are head of the house and they spend their time trying to find work and/or attend school, the women, on the other hand, spend their time taking care of the children, maintaining the household duties, harvesting, and caring for the elders in the community. Most rural areas have no sense of time, being that they can't make it to anything on time because of the resources that they have. In weather areas, they believe in making it a point to keep time and being on time. They figure if you're late, it's a sign of disrespect. It's better not to make appointments. They'd rather do a walk-in and sit and wait for a physician. Because the elders are more traditional, they are past-oriented. The youth, since they have influence from other cultures and want something better than what they currently have, they are future-oriented. The people of Uganda are very respectable people. Showing respect to men as well as areas is very, very important. When in a public setting such as a park or walking along the street, it is very important to maintain at least 3 or 4 feet of personal space when talking to a man or a woman. However, in a confined space such as a doctor's office or a bus stop, people often sit together. Although very friendly and willing to be open, Ugandans are very territorial. You are not supposed to touch or use the utensils or clothing belonging to an elder, and children are expected to give up their seats to adults. Having respect for elders and parents is one thing that they don't play with. In considerations of social organizations, Ugandan people are mainly patriarchal, meaning the men are the head of the household. The marriages are often arranged and the men pay for their wives in terms of cows and goats to the parents of the bride. Because brides are basically auctioned off to the highest bidder and they are often exposed to domestic violence and abuse for disobeying their husbands. The men are also allowed to have multiple wives and families, all of which he must care for since they don't believe in divorce. There's about 48 different ethnic groups in the country of Uganda. The family is the center of life because everyone plays their role in ensuring functioning. Women play their role as the caretaker, the men handle the providing, and the children are raised to do the following roles just as their parents. Families tend to favor the boy children, figuring that they will bring better living situations to the family since they are able to work and have better chances of receiving an education. Consideration of biological variations. The skin color of Ugandans is typically brown or very dark black. Body shape is usually dependent on geographic location. This is because of the lack of resources that some have, and not all have a lot of access to food, if any at all. The hair color is black and is usually kept short because it is seen as neat and clean. The diseases that are common to those that live in rural areas are food and waterborne illnesses, HIV/AIDS, malaria, bacterial diarrhea, hepatitis A, substance abuse, and cancer, just to name a few. Diseases and illnesses are more common in rural areas because of the lack of sanitation facilities, unclean drinking water, and malnutrition. Women and children are more susceptible to diseases because women don't often receive prenatal care and pass things on to the children. When it comes to food, they prefer plantains, sweet potatoes, tomatoes, and red beans, just to name a few. The more fresh, unprocessed types of foods. The cultural factors that affect healthcare within the Uganda culture consist of the following. Social inequalities. In Uganda, there is a division between the men and women. They have very different roles that they play in order to contribute to the well-being of one that becomes ill. The father is the provider. He pays for treatments, medicines, etc. The mother, along with the children, excluding the boys, are the caretakers, caring for the one that becomes ill. Religion. It's a belief within this culture that illnesses and death come from a curse placed over you by others within the community or God Himself. It's because of this most won't seek a medical professional until the symptoms worsen or it's too late. Instead, they seek help or healing from a religious practitioner and or traditional healers to help cope with the pain, suffering, or to provide an explanation to the cause of the illness. Some Ugandans also pray to shrines or spirits. Religion not only influences healthcare, it influences education, employment, and social advancement. Poverty. Those that are reduced to living in poverty suffer all types of consequences when it comes to healthcare. To start, it is stated that more than half, roughly about 85% or more, are living in poverty along the countryside parts of Uganda. There is no social class. It is either very wealthy or the very poor. The very poor face all types of infections and diseases just because of their living conditions, more so than of those that are living within the wealthy population. Barely having enough money to feed their families, many can't afford health care, let alone have the transportation or the means to get to a facility. These are the major problems when considering how someone's culture will affect how they will perceive the healthcare system. Shortages mainly are a result of an unorganized and self-caring government. Though the government of Uganda is said to have made efforts to improve healthcare and the means to get better care for everyone, no changes have been made. There is only one hospital per district, and even some have difficulty getting to them. Of those facilities that are available, there is a shortage of medications, services, and doctors and nurses that they have. Because the government doesn't give enough funding to the hospital, they oftentimes run out of the basic things just other than medication. This can include needles and gloves, just as examples. Since practitioners are taught in Uganda or either are paid to study abroad, many of them aren't exposed to different ways to treat diseases, or those that do study abroad don't return because of better work conditions and better money. It's stated that the nurse to patient ratio in Uganda is horribly alarming. 1 to 11,000. The World Health Organization states that a typical ratio should be 1 in 1,000.
Tendency to seek care dealing with financial, family, and time. Older people tend to seek health care more often than younger people, seeing as though old age plays a huge role on the maintenance of the body. Younger people seldom get to healthcare providers because they do not believe they have problems, which leads them to think everything is okay. People who are married are more often to see a healthcare provider than others because of their spouse. Women who live in lower socioeconomic areas tend to use healthcare services less than during maternity because of lack of education on what to do during maternity, leaving most children to be born in the home. Civil war in northern Uganda affected in the cases found in AIDS. Migrant labor played a part in the rise of AIDS. Urban decay, housing abandonment, and withdrawal of municipal services lead to the rise of AIDS. Undeveloped water causes for low fertility, waterborne diseases, and poor hygiene. Healthcare providers have a hard time getting reach of clean water for operations, births, and many more services. Depletion of forests are causing families to lose out on their money and burn heavy fuels within the house, causing things like carbon dioxide poisoning if not careful. Healthcare providers aren't able to help many people out in certain areas, and this leaves a fatal absence, causing some people not to know that carbon dioxide can really harm them. Soil degradation, which causes many people not to be able to have food, seen as though many Ugandans depend solely on the soil to make all of their foods, which leads to most of the malnourishment. This is caused by poor farming methods and rapid climate change. Many people can't afford to feed their children, which also means they can't afford health care for the malnourishment. Homosexuality in Uganda is not an open issue, and all of whom are in the LGBT are afraid to talk about it. In 2009, an anti-homosexuality bill was declared in Uganda, allowing only man and woman to be married or any type of relationship for that matter. The Ugandan government stands firmly against homosexuality, and punishment for doing so is much more brutal than in the United States. Many people from the LGBT community have shared their stories of how just being open about their presence in life has a target on their back. Even worse than bullying, the LGBT is physically violated, hurt, and even killed for just being themselves. If the government were to find someone to be guilty of homosexuality, the person could be put in prison for life. Advocating for the LGBT community outside of Uganda can be as bad as being in a homosexual relationship inside the country. Not only will the entire nation of Uganda shun the person, they might also be thrown in jail for a life sentence. Health-related issues that come with homosexuality would be very high risk of HIV and AIDS. The high risk of AIDS in Uganda put all couples in the risk of disease, which means males in the LGBT community have to be even more careful. Knowing that getting health services in Uganda is very hard makes it a very higher risk. Homosexual men are more prone to AIDS, and because of this fact, the men should be tested very often in the nation of Uganda. Not only are there internal health issues as a problem, but threats made by man anti-homosexual do much harm. Enough to scare many people into suicide attempts and even physical violence. Sometimes the threats become fatal, leaving the LGBT community even scared than before.
In February and July of 2014, the President of Uganda signed an Anti-Homosexual Act and the HIV Prevention and Control Act into law. Since the laws have been passed, the country has been in uproar as it has affected every corner of the country and has impacted all aspects of the Ugandan culture.
If we find the woman with the woman, we pull out one and we do it.
You do what?
We bowl her. We cannot allow a woman to be in sex with a fellow woman.
Have you ever raped a lesbian?
Yeah. Serious raping.
Serious raping?
Because when you feel woman to woman, then it means you need real sex. And we get you a man who is seriously needing a woman and they rape you seriously.
So what would you do if you saw a gay man?
The passing of the Anti-Homosexual Act has led to increased crime, arrests, police brutality, loss of employment, and evictions in the Ugandan community. This law has impacted the health procedures and financial investment in Uganda as more funding has been dedicated to mandatory HIV testing for pregnant women and their partners and exposing results to the public. Since these laws have been in effect, reports have been made about funding to support immunization and essential medicines to fight HIV, tuberculosis, and malaria have been misused. Instead, funds have been invested in unnecessary equipment such as vehicles for higher officials.
Not nearly enough is actually being spent on healthcare. I'm standing here in the Ministry of Health car park, surrounded on all sides by four-wheel drive vehicles.
In total, the ministry has bought 1,800 4x4s for its staff, but only 4 ambulances for Mulago Hospital.
Aid is financing the lifestyle of those who work in it, rather than the very people it's supposed to help.
Ugandans have made huge efforts to ensure any acts of homosexuality are forbidden by teaching children in school and teaching the community through religion.
Many of you have heard about homosexuality, sex between a man, and sex between a woman and a woman. When we get involved in homosexuality, our bodies will be punished. There are 10 different cancers that attack only homosexuals. So that's why I'm saying you keep away from it. They will deceive you and they will abuse your body. You will die before your time. As a young person, sex is bad. And if you are to have sex, you must grow up and marry. Can you clap to Jesus?
Uganda is a country that depends heavily on its ties and relations with other countries to prosper. A country like Uganda allows for major power countries such as the United States to influence their culture and living standards due to the financial contributions these countries donate.
Since then, Western governments have pumped in $1.75 billion into Uganda's health sector. 200 million of that comes directly from British taxpayers.
But we were told this hospital operates on only half the money it needs to work properly.
The healthcare system in Uganda is extremely different from the United States. In Uganda, many people do not seek treatment and healing in the hospital. As a matter of fact, the hospital may increase the risk of a patient dying or being infected with other diseases.
I'm greeted by this shocking image of a wounded man lying on the ground with no one attending to him. Further down the corridor, more people lie on the floor. The same floor where used needles have been discarded. There's blood all over the place. But remember, this isn't a war zone.
This guy is in shock. And that's why he keeps doing this. He's in shock.
I kept telling the staff this man needed attention, but they ignored me. Too overworked, underpaid, and demoralized. He lay there bleeding for half an hour in the end. With the hospital understaffed, critical patients rely on relatives to pay for special treatment.
Many hospitals are understaffed and overbooked. Hospitals are not equipped with necessary equipment, therefore patients are not properly cared for. For a U.S. healthcare provider, it may be difficult to remember these things when caring for a patient. Patients have to take what they are given as far as treatment, which is why many patients depend on prayer and natural herbs for healing their conditions. Modern medicine is not a popular method for treatment. While Uganda may not be in the best health condition, it is helpful for U.S. healthcare providers to not be quick to judge a Ugandan and assume they are there due to disease such as tuberculosis or HIV. With money comes power, and the United States' influence has reached beyond financial reasoning. The United States' influence has impacted social and religious aspects of the Ugandan community as influence of anti-homosexual laws and preaching of hate towards homosexuals has divided the country.
Uganda's Prime Minister acknowledged the influence the West is having in his country.
I'm aware that there has been American voices that have come and have advocated anti-homosexuality laws, yes.
Do you think that if they hadn't come into Uganda, then this topic would have never been raised?
I think the issue of homosexuality, it has always been there, but it never became a major issue of contention until recently.
Other Ugandan relations include its relationship with Britain. Uganda is known for trading most of its major export, coffee, with the United States and Europe. Uganda introduced its new foreign policy, the National Resistance Movement, which states that trade agreements with other developing countries would be based on barter rather than cash.
The beginning of every genocide is to rob your opponent their humanity. What you are watching is just an introduction to a disaster which we may not have time even to contain.